What is up, YouTube? Ncaa31 here. This is going to be a little Ncaa 13 / Madden 13 wish list video. I put together a bunch of replays that I've gone back and looked at during and after games of things that I like, things that I don't love, dislike, and would like to see cleaned up. Some of them I'll comment on, some of them I won't and just mindlessly ramble. And I'd love to hear your feedback and what you think, of course, as always. But anyhow, I'm going to begin here with run defense. One of my pet peeves about EA football is that stopping the run requires, generally speaking, overuse of blitzing. I'm not a very big fan of that, never have been. How do teams stop the run generally? Of course, teams do run blitz. But teams generally run blitz either when they're completely selling out to stop a run that they absolutely know is coming, or they're desperate and they can't stop the run just using their base personnel and base play calls. They're either outmanned or something has gone awry. Ideally, you don't want to have to resort to that, because if you run blitz and you run blitz the wrong direction, you're toast. If you run blitz and it's a play action pass, you open yourself up to a world of hurt, which I'll get into. We all know about the glories of EA play action pass blocking. But generally speaking, teams ideally want to stop the run by allocating as few resources in the box as possible, ideally. Now this is a 4-3 under front. You see me with the middle linebacker with the star icon that I'm using. You got the middle linebacker here. You got your weak side backer, your Sam backer here, your 5 technique weak side defensive end, your 3 technique defensive tackle, your 1 technique defensive tackle, and your strong side defensive tackle. Defensive end, rather. Now, you see on the formation, the strong side of the formation is to the right, so I defensive line audible my defensive line to slant to the right. Now, what ideally is supposed to happen here is that your weak side defensive end, as you can see based on how he's positioned, he absolutely cannot be kicked out of this spot. He has to be able to not only be a good speed pass rusher and get upfield here, but he has to be able to hold that edge, or there's a massive alley right up here. Your 3 technique defensive tackle has to be a quick, disruptive type of player. He's a tough guy to have a double team on, because if you do a guard tackle double team, that leaves this guy one-on-one with a back. If you do a center guard double team, well, you have this big hoss here who's going to shoot right in here. This guy is not, the right guard here is not in a very good position to stop him. And then, of course, you would have the strong side defensive end who would just be able to just crash through here. Whoops. No. And by the way, this is also a reason why double team pass blocking isn't nearly as common as people think. The reason why you pay your left tackle $50 million is to be able to handle this guy without a double team. Because if you do, that's just going to leave stress somewhere else. Weak side backer has B gap, C gap. He has to be able to get on his horse and cut off any run out here and get out here to pursue. Middle linebacker has A gap and B gap responsibilities as well. These 2 backers are usually double gapped, but if you have the hosses up front, they should be able to make plays without being obstructed too much. Sam backer Again, he cannot be hooked, he cannot be reached, he cannot be kicked out, or there's a massive alley. Because all you got here is a corner and safety. And you can see how he's outnumbered. So that's how a run fit in the 4-3 under front should work. All 11 guys knowing what gaps they need to play, are assigned to play, using their technique and their natural abilities to make plays. And of course, football can be a cruel game at times. 10 guys can do their job perfectly, but if one guy's a knucklehead, an 80-yard run can happen. We see that happen all the time. Let's take a look at this play and see what happens. Run is stuffed. Why? You see the double team here on this defensive tackle, which frees up me here as I make a beeline right to my gap. Single team block on my other defensive tackle. Now, the reason why this works is because both these guys are hosses. They're really, really strong. And even though they get blocked at the point of attack, they don't get pancaked. So that allows the Mike to just run in free and force the cutback. And it allows the Will, who's also still uncovered, thanks to my defensive linemen being strong enough to hold their ground, to make the play. This is how the 2000 Ravens played. This is how Ray Lewis became Ray Lewis. He had big Tony Siragusa and Sam Adams in these spots right here. Being unmovable at the point of attack, which allowed him to just come in unblocked and just make plays from side to sideline. Now, I happened to miss him because he cut back, but my weak side linebacker, first thing you do is you see what's coming towards your gap. He stays at home, and he's right there to make the play. That's textbook run defense. And that's what we need to see more of instead of just relying on hyper blitzing to stop the run. That took almost half the time I thought it would, or twice as long as I thought it would. I have other video clips to show. But that's what I want to see more of as far as run defense in EA football. Good news, bad news with this one. Good news, I was able to complete a deep comeback route and also throw the ball low on purpose because I was freaked out that the pass might be jumped or lead Fitzgerald out of bounds. That's the good news. The bad news is we have to figure out a way in these games to translate good man coverage in a way other than having the receiver, not the receiver, the defender have the ability to mimic your movements, because it makes double move routes pretty much useless. There has to be a way to say, okay, how can we get this guy to read and react in a little bit more realistic manner? Because it just looks ugly. Now, defensive backs in off-man coverage, they are to an extent taught to mirror a receiver's movements. You know, kind of like a basketball player, you know, guarding a ball handler. But as a defensive back in off-man coverage, you have to anticipate the receiver's break point. Now, the best route-running receivers, guys like Larry Fitzgerald, what makes him so great is that receivers like him, receivers like Jerry Rice, guys who aren't, you know, burners, don't have that great vertical speed. The reason why they're able to get open is they know how to sell a route. They don't give away when they're going to break or what direction they're going to break. So a defensive back not only has to use his athletic ability, but he also has to use his instincts. So I think we need to see, that reflected in the game more. Instead of having the defensive back be able to copy a receiver's movements, allow the top defensive backs to react to the way the receiver moves the way they should, by being able to anticipate, being able to not be sold by double moves and whatnot, and just react in a more fluid manner. I agree with the overall observation that offensive linemen, defensive linemen, pass protection, and pass rush matchups are a little too drastic in their outcomes. It's either the offensive lineman, if he's stacks up pretty well against his pass rusher, will either completely stone him, or if you have a stud beastly pass rusher going against a guy who he has a matchup advantage with, he'll just completely detonate the guy. However, you also have situations like this where it plays out a lot more naturally, so to speak. The skill level difference between the players is still respected, but it doesn't play out in just a boom or bust, I'm going to completely run you over kind of way. You see good hand fighting, good technique by the pass rusher, who eventually gets free of the blocker and does a good, club rip move, and you see the offensive tackle doing the best he can to hang in there. Give the offensive linemen their due. Offensive linemen tend to get shortchanged athletically. These guys are quick, nimble, strong, and they have the agility of guys much smaller. That's why they're freaks of nature. Allow that to be put on display as well. And if they get beat by a better player, they still get beat. Nothing wrong with that at all. When play action works correctly, it can look really, really sweet. Play action fake, linebackers are frozen, and just look at that deep void in the middle. And he T-bows. But for some reason, the blocking for play action pass plays is just so haphazard. It either works or your entire offensive line just caves in. Fix it, please. Okay, why do I like this play? A little bit of everything here. Good pocket, good step up and throwing lane, lob it over that linebacker, and I like the one-handed catch because it was the only, or attempt, because it was the only possible play he could make to have a chance at making the catch. The animation occurred in context, but in general, wide receivers need to be more aggressive fighting for the ball. Defensive backs fight for the ball with much more aggression than wide receivers, and that's got to be corrected. Running a real spread option offense is a little bit difficult because of this. You see that little hesitation step that the game forces your quarterback to make? The zone read is done 98% right in this game. Read the defensive end. It's blocked pretty well here, but the hesitation step your QB is required to take, it greatly neutralizes the impact of a Denard Robinson type of QB.